Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. This is the Arlington County Board of Equalization meeting. They have 6 cases, and the first case that we're going to start with is with Mr. Rushman. The RPC is 09069-008 at 1009 North Kentucky Street. Do we have Mr. Rushman?
Hi, good morning. Yes.
Good morning, sir. You can go ahead and start with your 8 minutes, and then we'll proceed with the county.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm Josh Rushman, and my wife Madeline Rushman and I are the owners of 1009 North Kentucky Street. We are requesting a reduction in the assessed value of our home based on fair market value of comparable properties. 1009 North Kentucky is a challenging property to value because it is one of the few properties in our neighborhood that has not been renovated with an interior addition. Our neighborhood, 501029 Westover Village, dates back to 1939 when it was developed predominantly using 2 floor plans, a 2-bedroom like our house and a 3-bedroom model. And the ensuing 85 years, the neighborhood's evolved significantly. Contrary to the county statement on page 3 that the typical home in this neighborhood has had very little or no updates since the community was built, most homes in this neighborhood have in fact been significantly modified. Anyone who's been to Lost Dog or the Italian store lately has seen the extent and variety of additions in this area. Of the approximately 180 single-family homes in the neighborhood, almost 80% have pop-out additions, like County Comp 1, or are complete teardowns, like the house next door to us. Only about 20% of the homes in the neighborhood have their original interior footprint, like ours. While we did add a screened-in porch 2 years ago, our property is one of the few that has not added interior square footage. These changes to the neighborhood make it difficult to find recent sales of easily comparable properties. Looking at the neighborhood as a whole, sales of larger and more easily marketable properties will tend to drive the overall valuation. It is more difficult to assess the limited market appeal of significantly smaller properties. The wide range of comparable properties that the county and I identified highlight this. I don't argue the county's analysis of the comps that I provided. However, the county's selection of comps doesn't hold up to the same rigor. In particular, I'd like to draw the board's attention to County Comp 2. Compared to our home, this property has an additional full bath, an additional half bath, an accessory dwelling unit with a bedroom and full bath, more than double the finished square footage in the basement. The property is also has a 20-year younger effective age and is graded in higher condition. The property only sold for $44,000 more than our assessed value. County Comps 1 and 3 are more similar, but many ways superior to our property. These properties recently sold for $850,000 and $845,000. I would also note that there is a discrepancy between the county's description of Comp 3 on page 5 and the county's online records. The online records indicate that property is a 2-bedroom house rather than a 1-bedroom house. Like Comps 1 and 3, our house is located very close to I-66. We are 4 houses from the interstate and hear much of the same traffic noise. To close, I would ask the board to either consider a broader range of comparable properties that appropriately bracket our house between those larger and smaller and to reduce our assessment accordingly. Or I'd ask the board to narrow the range of comps to Comps 1 and 3 that are most closely and most directly comparable to our house and lower our assessment based on those recent sales. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kanye? I'm sorry. You can go ahead and start with your 8 minutes.
Good morning, board. So an interior and exterior inspection of the subject property was done with Julian Mills as a second appraiser. The department used 3 sales comps and 2 assessment comps, and these can be found on pages 5 and 6 of the BOE packet. 2 of the sales comps are in the direct neighborhood as a subject, and 1 is in neighborhood 501022. These sales can prove that the assessment for the subject is in line with market values in the area. Homes that are like the subject with a small finished square footage and floor plan don't often come on the market to be used as direct comps, but the ones used were similar and much closer to the subject. Neighborhood 501029 saw a 1.7% increase, which is way below the county's average, and this is due to the increase in the land values that have been observed in the past 5 years, with the most recent sale being at $780,000 for a 5,100 square foot lot. whereas the subject's land assessment is at 774,500 for a 5,250 square foot lot, so that our land values are in line with market values. The subject only saw a 2.8% total change, with a negative 4.3% decrease in the improvement value due to the reduction in the location multiplier for the neighborhood. The appellant's opinion of value is based off of sales from homes that are in different neighborhoods than the subject, and therefore the factors that influence these values are unique to these neighborhoods. So with data from these sales and the neighborhood analysis, it is recommended that the 2025 assessment be confirmed at $886,800. This amount can be confirmed as fair and equitable.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from board members? No. I just have a quick question to the appraiser. Is the land valued now based on square footage, or because before I remember that we used to see, even though there was a small difference in size, the land value was about the same for each home site. Does it vary now from one to the other based on size?
Yeah,
Okay, so the square footage does affect.
it does affect the value, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? All right, we'll go to the wrap-ups. We'll start with the appraiser.
So the home's quality is average plus, which is typical for homes that are 850 square feet in that neighborhood. So based off of these recent land sales that I mentioned and other supporting market data, we ask that the board to confirm the assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rushman, you have 1 minute to wrap up and let us know anything else.
Sure, just two quick points. In terms of the overall increase in the property valuation, our property was increased more rapidly than the rest of the neighborhood. The rest of the neighborhood increased at 1.7. Our property increased at 2% last year. And then I would also note County Comp 3 is outside of the neighborhood, raising similar questions about whether or not how comparable that property is. So I'd encourage the board to look at County Comparable 1 as the most directly comparable to our property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's among the board. Where does everybody stand on this?
I'll start.
Mr. Mendez?
Yeah, I thought the appellant made a great argument. The county, he used the county's comps. I think his comparable 3 was their comparable 1. But going back to his argument, looking at comparable 1 and comparable 3, these are verified sales here. They appear to be arm's length transactions, and both of those properties seem to be superior to me, at least. The subject property, the lot in the back, it's kind of got like a hill in the back. So the backyard is not as desirable as comparable 3 or 1, in my opinion. And it seems that there is a basement for comp 3. I was looking on the MLS. Maybe that's a mistake on the county's page 5. But with that said, I'm more inclined to go closer to the balance number. Maybe I'm alone in that, but based on the 2 sales, I think the subject property is definitely superior.
Yeah, I can see that. Normally in the past, what I recommended to do is, we have comparables, we have sales that have happened. I know the age may be a little bit off by a few years, but I think I would prefer, and I would feel more comfortable going with the sales price, with an actual sales price, rather than just going with that estimated number. The comparables that the appellant provided, I think they're good as far as the houses, but I think there are other neighborhoods that really don't necessarily match the multipliers on the land. So.
Well, I look, they're the appellants plus in comp 3, quality, so forth is pretty much similar. Lots slightly different, bigger, but it is a discount on the 1 on 3. I really try to look into the comps, and what's listed for those other properties is not that different. And improvements to your house, that's somewhat of a choice if they want to upgrade and spend $50,000 in the process for a capital improvement. I don't see that it's that far off. I'm looking at the information on the other comps that the county presents in their documentation, which is accurate. So it's apples to apples a little more than when you do look at that property specifically. I'm okay with
Zuli?
I mean, I would agree with Mark on that. I'm looking at the three comps, even if you take off the ADU, when you look at the square footage, you know, and the comparable features of the property, I'm okay with the county's assessment.
and effective ages on some of the other comps.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not seeing what the county may not have those properties correct, but with the numbers that they generate because of what they have in their records,
Mhm.
that's comparable to what's in the records for those other properties.
Okay, well, I think we don't have much support or making any adjustments, so I guess by a vote or non-vote, it will revert to the original assessment anyway. So does anybody want to make a motion?
Okay, I'll move to confirm the county at 886,800.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Dooley to confirm. We have a second, Mr. Yates. All in favor? I'll go ahead and go with that. Against? Mr. Mendes, so it's 3-1. The assessment is being confirmed at 886,800. Thank you, Mr. Ruffin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. All right, we'll go to the second case, RPC 15004-034 at 2001 North Adams Street. And we have Ms. Ross.
Yes,
Good morning.
good morning.
You can go ahead and start with your 8 minutes, Ms. Ross.
Okay, Potomac Towers is located at 2001 North Adams Street. It is a 406-unit apartment building built in 1961. Our analysis is based on the calendar year 2024 INE statement, which is shown on page 5 of our appeal package. The gross potential income is at 10.5 million, other income at 872,000. Our vacancy is at 5%. The expenses are at 3.5 million, which results in an NOI of 3.7 million. Although the county did increase their cap rates this year, 30 basis points from last year, market research suggests a further increase. So we added 20 basis points to the 6% cap rate to arrive at a 6.2%. And our analysis developed a value of 118,952,600. If you were to use the county's cap rate of 6%, that value would be 122,545,700. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chicas. You can start with your 8 minutes on this case.
Absolutely. Good morning, board members. Good morning, Sue.
Good morning.
Primarily going to focus upon the summary sheet. When we're looking at the history, please note that this sheet was one of the first we created for, and I should say I created for the 2025 year, and did not use reconstruction columns per request at the end of last year from some of the board members to try to keep things a little bit simpler as far as using verbiage and the comment field to demonstrate the items that we request y'all consider as far as not being appropriate or owner expenses. When we look at the history of the property, you can see growth in 2023 of 8.8%. As indicated in column G, it only looks as though there is growth of 3.35% in 2024. But again, if you would note the column specifically after the 95% occupancy rate for January 1st, it lists some almost $480,000 of what the department would deem capital improvements, capital expenditures, or at the very least, non-stabilized annual operating expenses. Things such as asphalt sealant, grill installations, building painting and caulking, almost $360,000 for painting and caulking. And we know this is an out of ordinary expense increase because that subtotal alone increased by 683% year over year. When you take those items out, you get to a much more stabilized operating expense, approximately $120,000 increase over last year's reported operating expense as seen in column L. So again, even on allowing for that, that indicated an increase of almost 10% NOI year over year. This follows again the revenue increases year over year of 6% growth in 2022, 6.5% growth in 23, and another 6.8% growth in 2024. Well located, just shy of, or by some metrics, within a half-mile walking distance of Courthouse Metro. Very well stabilized as far as occupancy, approximately 5%, just shy of that year over year. Again, you can see that the adjustment, the projection rather made by the county for 2025, as well with the reason of the growth that's happened the last 3 years in a row. We do, and in fact, with the confirmation request by the county, you'll see that as year-over-year assessment, this projects a modest 2.6% increase over last year's valuation. Much more in line with what's going on in the marketplace as opposed to the owner's request of a 9% drop in value year over year. This being said, we do believe the county should be confirmed at a 2025 real property assessment of $133,674,100. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chicas. Do we have any questions from the board? No questions? Okay. Mr. Chicas, would you like to take your 1 minute, please?
No, sir.
Ms. Ross, you have 1 minute to wrap up.
Yes, taking what Chris had mentioned as he's considered outstanding expenses, if we were to take that amount out, we still come up with a value of $130,545,700 based on the actual expenses of $3.5 million. I believe he said there was $480,000 that he had taken out, so that would develop expenses of $3 million, and the resulted assessment would be $130,545,700. Thank you very much, board, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm on the board now. Where do we stand? Mr. Yates?
So I'll start, I guess. I did think the expenses were a little out of line. And I ran the numbers. I analyzed them, doing the averages of all of them and then all the percentages. But bottom line is I went with 30% as the expense. And that brought the NOI down to 7664590 and a value of $127,743,167.
You took 30% from.
I took 30% on the expenses.
From the original.
On the original. Because I look, looking at the track record, looking at what came the operating year, I thought the county was a little low on that. Okay.
And what was the actual dollar amount, Mark?
For the expenses?
Yeah.
$3,284,825 at 30%.
Okay. Mr. Mendes?
Yeah, I did something similar. Looking back in prior year's expenses in column A, you can see they've reached 3.2 in the past. So I didn't think that was too out of line. So what I did is I took the expenses from the test column in column F, and I applied them to column E, the I&E. And I was pretty close to you, Mark. I got $130,769,700.
Which is close to what the appellant is requesting. Because I looked at both and I ended up looking at the actual and using that NOI that they have on column E, comes up very close to the number you came up with, 127,641. But yeah, I think that
127,743 is what I had.
I don't know if it went down though. I mean,
yeah.
I don't, I'm about at what it was at last year, but I don't know what.
I just think the expenses are off. I mean, to me, it was a little glaring.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Definitely.
And I just tried to come up with a reasonable number, trying to come at that number from a couple different perspectives. Anyway,
Based on what the, Ms. Ross is agreeing to, the reduction, I think that comes up really close to the number that she was mentioning. So I would feel better going with that, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 127 is too low.
okay,
Okay.
Great.
So
Well, then I'm gonna move that we reduce the 2025 assessment to 130,769,700.
we have a motion to reduce by Ms. Mendes. Do we have a second? I'll go ahead and second that. All in favor? Aye. Okay with it?
yes,
Okay. So the vote is 4-0. We have reduced the assessment to 130,769,700, and that is by increasing the expenses on what is shown on the test assessment using it. Correct?
I increased the expenses in column E. I just took the expenses from column F and applied them to column E.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Going on, we're going to go to the third case. That's RPC 35001-375, 1393 South East Street. And we have Ms. Brooks. Good morning. You can start with your amen on this case.
Thank you. Good morning, board. Thank you for having me. I haven't visited you all this way. I've only done the in-person many years ago when I actually worked with Sue over at Alta. So this is a new process for me. Anyway, thank you so much for having us. My name is Rachel Brooks. I'm with CBRE, and we are here representing the Embassy Suites Crystal City at 1393 South Eid Street. This is a 269 room full service hotel, 11 stories, and it was originally built in 1985, renovated in 2019, and the owners of the property engaged our appraisal team to prepare this report that I do believe that you have for the 2025 value. And I have requested that Michael Cummings and Dee Dee Yep, who are the appraisers that wrote the report, join me just in case there are questions that I'm not able to answer. What it kind of comes down to essentially is that the appraisal and the fair market value of the property is based on a fee simple value versus looking at it from a leased fee perspective and digging down into the actual operation of the property. So we're looking more high level at what the market value of the property is. And I'm not exactly sure how much the board wants me to go through the entire report. But within the report, there are the actual historical operating history of the property is presented on page 15 of the report. I'm not sure what page that is in the PDF itself. But it does show the year over year and then also what the 2025 budget will be. And then with that, the appraisal team also provided comparables for operating expenses, which the subject property falls in line with, as well as CBRE's trends of similar properties, again, showing the typical operation of hotels of this size and grade. And really, essentially, it comes to, they did do a discounted cash flow analysis. I do understand that the county doesn't necessarily do that. We have reviewed the county's actual income approach. And so on page 28 of the document, which again, I'm not sure what page that is in the PDF, is the direct capitalization summary of everything that was presented prior, which is based on the prior year's operations. And if you were to take a look at that, while the appraiser is not loading the cap rate, they are using an 8 cap versus which is unloaded and did include property taxes as a line item of expense, but essentially we would think that would be a wash. The county is using a 6.84% cap rate, which again, if you get deeper into the report, the sale comparables of these properties, the overall cap rate, there is one that is a 5.9% cap rate, 5.59% cap rate. However, generally the average is a 7.76 for this asset class. So I think there's a couple things. I think that the county has definitely underestimated the cap rate, and should be looking at this from a fee perspective. And so when I took a look at the appraisal report personally, on the direct cap page, you will see there is a rounded value of 63.6 million, of which they have deducted 200,000 for capital expenses. And then I took the county's assumption of FF&E below the line, which puts us at a value of 60,134,214. And I do think that that could be a reasonable assumption of value. The appraisers concluded a real property value of 59,775,000. So with that, I will open it up for Chris.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chicas, it's your turn to go.
Yes, sir. So again, relying primarily upon the summary sheet, one of the things we'll notice is no 2023 INE was provided. There was no appeal last year. Nothing was submitted by the owner. The operating year 2024, as Ms. Brooks noted, was pulled from the appraisal itself. We did take the liberty of removing real estate tax, obviously to keep with equalization purposes, as the point of the real estate assessment is to come up with the real property tax valuation. When you look at that right away, you probably notice that our projection was shy almost $1 million. That should be glaring. Obviously, we missed the boat. And a lot of that is due to having the information available to us for the January 1 reassessment is reliant upon previous history. And so without 2023, we're flying a bit blind. When you do look at the appellant's pro formas provided by the appraiser, the appraisal that was submitted with the assessment, you can see, as Ms. Brooks fairly well surmised, we did include not only the appellant's pro forma that included real estate taxes and no load in column G, we went ahead and included column H, which strips the real estate tax and loads the cap rate. Either way, you see that there is a value represented. Obviously, we do believe, based on the history of the property exclusively seen in column E and the NOI that's demonstrated there, column H is shy of that by some 500,000, essentially representing a drop in value by almost 7.6%. Which again doesn't seem to make sense with the prosperity at the property, achieving almost 80% occupancy rates. And again, as we return to normalcy to 2019 historic levels of occupancy, revenue per available room, and ADR, we believe that the Marriott represents that return to normalcy. Again, as the board has heard at least twice or three times now, Arlington's hotels had a spectacular 2024, again, leading the state of Virginia and the metro region as far as all of those metrics: occupancy, average daily rate, and revenue per available room. We believe this provides more than enough support for us to be on the lower end of the full service cap rates that are provided by the institutional surveys that were available in the third quarter. We do believe all of these facts, again, primarily the projection that was some $1 million shy of what was achieved in the 2024 year, no reason to believe that achievement won't continue at least modestly into 2025, as opposed to the projection made of a negative 8% growth year over year. That being said, we do believe the county should be confirmed at a value of $62,574,800. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Do we have any questions from the board? No? Julie, no questions? Okay. We'll go to wrap-ups. Mr. Chicas, if you have anything else to add? Mr. Chicas, anything else to add?
I'm sorry, say again, sir?
Do you have anything else
Say
to
again?
add? Do you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay, thank
sir.
you. Ms. Brooks, you have 1 minute to wrap up, please.
I would like to give the floor to the appraisers that prepared the report, if you don't mind.
Sure, you have 1 minute to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. This is Michael Cummings, MAI. I just want to reiterate that we went line by line through these P&L statements to look at comparisons to make sure that they were allocated to market as market value is what we're looking at. We also considered new supply in the market, and there is a 330 room hotel that's in the planning stage that will affect this market as well. And any buyer looking at this would look at the additional risk associated with this cash flow.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, it's among the board now. Where does everybody stand on this?
I'm good with the county.
You okay with the county?
Yeah,
Linda?
to the last comment made, I mean, we have had a policy that we don't really take into account hypotheticals, this may be coming online, that may not be coming online. So I don't know if that has much to do with my decision on what I'm gonna vote for, but it seems underassessed. I mean, based on the column E, NOI, if the county applied their cap rate to that, it may be a much higher assessment. So I don't see anything to cause me to vote against the county. And also, if you look in column B, for 2022, the NOI was 4.2 million. The county in column D is only using 5.2 million. That's a 2-year gap. So I think it's very reasonable.
I think they are in a good. Yeah, I think the county was generous.
Yeah.
Well, it does affect not to have the numbers, to be able to come up with a correct assessment. And I appreciate the appellants trying to do be simple assessment, but the numbers are there, and I think I agree with you that it is very conservative, very low compared to what it would have been if the appraiser had the numbers from 2023.
Next year will be different.
Yes.
Great.
All right, not having anything else, I'll go ahead and move that we confirm the assessment on this parcel at 62,574,800.
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Dooley, all in favor? Aye. So it is 4-0. The assessment is being confirmed on this, Ms. Brooks. We'll go to the next case. RPC 34027-026, the address 2899 27th Street South. You can go ahead and start with your 8 minutes, Ms. Brooks.
Okay, thank you. This is going to be a similar conversation. This is same ownership again, engaged CBRE to prepare an appraisal for this hearing. This is the Courtyard Crystal City at 2899 Richmond Highway. It's a 14-story, 272-room full-service hotel, originally constructed in 1990, and at this point definitely is in need of a bit of a facelift. Again, for this one, the appraisers have provided the historical information within the report on page 14 of the actual report. Again, I'm not sure what page that is in the PDF. Again, supported with expense comps and with sale comps to support the per key values, the cap rates, And again, I would just direct you to the direct capitalization page, which is page 27 of the report. With again, the appraisers have included the property taxes and have capitalized the EBITDA at an 8% cap. The county is loading their cap rate, which implies a base cap of 7.59, so definitely a little closer. So here, because of the age of the property and the need for a PIP, which is discussed within the report, the appraisers have deducted $9.8 million for that PIP in order to bring it up to today's standards. With that, the as-is indicated market value, again, we are looking at a fee simple value versus a leased fee value. Deducting the county's assumption of $939,468 for FF&E implies a real property value of $59,960,532. And the appraisers have concluded a real property value of $57,600,000. So we do believe that the $59,960 is also a fair representation of the current market value of this property.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brooks. Mr. Chicas, you can start with your 8 minutes.
Yes, sir. So again, relying heavily upon the summary sheet. This one was something similar where we did not receive 2023's I&E until this year's appeal. Again, last year they did not appeal the property and the owner did not submit one through other channels. We did reach out to Ms. Brooks. She was able to supply us with the 2023 financial statement, as you can see in column C. And again, as you heard yesterday, and as was similar to the previous case, we did not have that information. Obviously, we missed the mark by over $500,000. Even when looking at it as consistent from 23 to 24, again, we're $500,000, $500,000 shy of what was achievable. Again, as Ms. Brooks noted, this is very similar to the last case in the sense that while the column E comes straight from the appraisal, the column G is the appraiser's pro forma, including real estate tax, no load on the cap rate. We did add an additional column G. Only difference there being that we backed out the real estate tax and loaded the rate back in. As we've made fairly clear from previous cases, we do believe that the success of Arlington's hotels, one of which is this, again, 3% growth year over year, almost 81% occupancy rate, growth at all levels, available daily rate, revenue per available room. Given we're $500,000 under what was achieved in 2024. And again, if you look at column H, using the appraiser's pro forma, when taking out real estate tax, you'll see that we're actually almost $900,000 some dollars lower than what's projected for 2025. So again, fully $500,000, $500,000 under what was achieved in 2024, and almost $900,000 low of what is expected for 2025 based on the owner's appraisers. That being said, we do believe the county should be confirmed at a value of $61,094,300. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chicas. Any questions from the board?
No.
No? Okay, we'll go and start with your wrap-ups. Mr. Chicas, anything else to add?
Nothing further, sir.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brooks, anything else to add in your 1 minute wrap-up?
Again, I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Cummings, if I may.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Cummings, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I would just like to point out, though, that in order to maintain this asset, given its current kind of average condition, this hotel would be required to do, $9.8+ million in capital expenditures to maintain that level of cash flow. And if they don't complete that CapEx, the cash flow is going to start deteriorating. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's among the board now. I think I'll start. I mean, this is pretty similar to the previous days. The numbers are low, they're there. I don't think we've considered tip numbers before, so I don't, based on equalizing everything else with everybody else, I think, there's not much more to do but to confirm the number.
Right. PIP is something that we run across all the time. Hotels know it. They reserve for it. They negotiate it with the flags.
Yeah.
It's part of the value. It's what they need.
Ms. Dooley, anything else to add?
Agreed, no, I agree.
Okay, I'll go ahead and also motion to confirm this as asset at 61,094,300.
I'll second.
We have a second by Mr. Mendez. All in favor? Aye. Okay, the vote is 4-0. So this assessment is being confirmed. Thank you, Ms. Brooks, Mr. Cummings, for joining.
Thank you, board. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, the last two cases that we have with Ms. Viola, we are going to be hearing them together and understand. You'll have an extra 2 minutes to present your case, Mr. Viola, so you can go ahead and start with your 8 minutes.
Good morning.
Yeah,
Appreciate
so
you.
let me mention the RPTs. Sorry about that. It's 18014-331 and 18014-332. Both of them are 1220 North Fillmore Street. You can go ahead and start with your 8 minutes. 10 minutes, Ms. Viola.
All right, thank you for your time this morning. We're here to talk about our Gold's Gym, which is part of the Station Square Clarendon project here in Arlington at the Clarendon Metro. We have been involved with this project since the very beginning back in 2002, 2003, and that really has a basis for which I want to discuss this particular tenant with you, because back then we had a 2-acre site and we were looking to build 480,000 square feet on it. There was one sticking point. Gold's Gym was in an old grocery store here on site, and the only way we could proceed was if we got them off the property. So, if you will, somebody might say we gave them a sweetheart deal because the assessment that we're provided with for 25 shows a rent of $44 a foot for all office space on this property. None of it is leased at that rate. We're still in a very tough time for commercial properties, and most of our rents, as indicated in our writings to the Department of Assessments, was that we're looking at $37, $38 a foot. Now, going back to Gold's, when we tried to get them off the property, we negotiated a rent of $21. That was in 2002. They did not move in until 2007, and therefore that's when the lease kicked in. And at a 2.5% increase per annum, we're still not at $30 a foot. And frankly, until this lease ends, we won't get above $40 a foot. So here we are faced with a rent that, our economics just don't work. So I'm curious as to why the insistence upon applying a rate. And here's the thing. It's a 480,000 square foot site. The value of this property is probably in the vicinity of $300 million collectively for the residential units and the commercial. I fail to understand why there can't be some patience applied and consideration given for the fact that we did that deal in order to make 480,000 square feet with a value of $300 million possible. And so it's only a matter of time before Gold's is removed from the property. We're using a 6.7% cap rate. However, gyms are not high credit. As a matter of fact, Gold's ended 23 owing us about 3.5 months of rent, which we had to structure a payment plan that doesn't end until this month. And frankly, we weren't even sure we'd get it. So it's been tough through the COVID time. We were giving them a concession of 50% of the rent for 6 months every year, these first 2 years, and then reduced it to 3 months for 1 year. So we fail to understand why this value is being offered. We also are looking at the increase of 24% from last year. And all this is on the basis of, well, you were an economic unit, but you flipped the switch and now you're not an economic unit. So we're just going to jack your value. But it doesn't change the rents. It doesn't change the expenses just because we say, oh, you're no longer an economic unit. So that's why we have asked for about a 4% increase over last year rather than 24. And again, I would ask the county to be patient in knowing that it's only a matter of time before Golds leaves the property. And at that time, there will be more value realized, as we're seeing with our retail rents that have jumped now from $67 a foot to $100 a foot. And all that will be coming into realization in the next 12 months. See if there's anything else I had to say. There is one other point. Since 2012, we had another, and I referred to this in my communications, that's why I'm bringing it up. We have a garage here, and at that time it was assessed at 2.7 million. Over the next 9 years, it went to over 7 million. Now, since then, it is down to 3.3 million, which is only a 25% increase from where it was back in 2012. But in the interim, to go from 2.7 up to over 7 was a quantum leap, but apparently somewhere in the structure, it's understood that, you know, hey, if we can get it, we'll get it. And then it's up to the owner to push back. And as I've said, we have now seen that rate dwindle to 25% after it was over 3 times as high. I'll rest. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Viola. Good morning, Ms. Rothstein. You can start with your 8 minutes or 10 minutes. We'll go with both cases at the same time.
All right, thank you, board. Thank you, Mr. Viola, for being here this morning. So basically, I want to focus on the summary page for the moment. And first of all, direct your attention to the bottom of the summary page. You'll see a chart there. Now, Mr. Viola, when he submits his income and expense statements, and when he's referring to rent per square foot, please keep in mind that's based on his net leasable area. The county must recognize and go by what is recorded in the declaration. And when you look at columns D1, D2, F1, and F2, those are the recorded net leasable areas. So this chart below, what I've done is Mr. Viola was kind enough to submit a copy of the lease. And so I went through and did a conversion. So basically I'm converting apples to oranges so that we can compare oranges to oranges. And when you, after you notice, I put in all the dates, you know, from when the lease began or this newer lease began, and the rent changes 2.5% every year on August 1st. And so I did a simple conversion there. When you look at the last column, that is the converted base rent. Okay. And so I thought, okay, we're gonna, the reason for doing a test column is just so that I can apply this converted base rent and show you or demonstrate the base rent that we're using. So I used the rent that was stated for August 1st, 2024, when actually we're valuing for January 1, 2025. So the rent would have slightly increased, but I'm using the rent as it was for August 1st, 2024 in those two columns, the test columns F1 and F2. First of all, for the January 1 assessment, when you look at columns D1 and D2, note in the past, I actually do separate out the base rent and the pass-through. I cannot, and I apologize, I cannot remember why I had lumped them together. So the income, the gross income that you see in columns D1 and D2, basically that's your base rent plus your pass-through lumped together. Okay. And as you follow down the line, you've got your standard stabilized vacancy that we applied for all the units in Station Square. And then the expenses that were used for the January 1 assessment. Please note that the combined expenses for those two parcels combined, note that it's the January 1 is about 60,000 higher than what they reported in 2023. When you compare it to the 2024 expenses, the January 1 expenses that I used are still a little higher than what was reported for 2024. Now to look at their 2024, keep in mind that look at the center column between those column E1 and E2. So your combined rental rate, base rate, and also your pass-through when you follow down the line. The 2024 is still reporting something a little bit higher than what was used in the original January 1 assessment. And obviously, they're not reporting any vacancy, so that kind of skews it a little bit. But when you compare the 2024 gross income, effective gross income, the EGI, to our January 1 EGI, it's substantially less. Next, I did want to read a quick little blurb. So basically, a quick history on this particular property. An economic unit was created in the beginning year of 2022 and disbanded for the year 2025 assessment based on phone conversations with the owner, Mr. Viola, in November, December of 2024. Mr. Viola stated that they are restructuring or re-subdividing the units owned in Station Square and in the process of selling those owned units. So I did convey to him that when we disband this economic unit, we're going to follow the commercial condo guidelines. Those will be in effect. We made a special exception for only 2 commercial condo units in the entire county. It was Mr. Viola's Station Square, the units that his company owns, and for the Eclipse. And the reason being is that more than 95% of the commercial condos in the county are smaller than 10,000 square feet. His and the Eclipse were substantially larger. I believe his was like 45 or 48,000 square feet. I can't remember the exact number at the moment. And the Eclipse was at 82,000. So obviously, your rent per square foot is going to be a little bit higher. Speaking generally, your rent per square foot is going to be a little bit higher on a smaller commercial condo versus something that's like 45 or 80,000 square feet. You're going to have different buyers involved. so on and so forth. But I did disclose to Mr. Viola that when we disband these this economic unit, because he's selling off the individual parcels, we are going to use commercial condo guidelines. Also, I wanted to note that just for good measure, I threw in a couple of comparable sales for commercial condos. The Phoenix is very similar to Station Square, and it's only about a block further away. So they both have similar access to all the amenities in that surrounding area. And that sale sold for $646 per square foot. Mr. Viola did have another condo that had sold that he actually sold in his project. It was a retail one, and it sold for $952 a square foot in Station Square. Then we have the Bromptons at Lyon Park. That's further away, so you're going to have to travel a little more. And that one sold for $517 a square foot. There was another sale that Mr. Viola had sold. It was one of his office units on the 3rd floor, and that came out to $468 a square foot. That was back in August. Once again, I wanted to reiterate that our January 1 NOI is less than what is being reported on the 2024 INE. And we feel that our January 1 assessment is fair and equitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruskin. Do we have any questions from the board? No questions? Okay, Ms. Ruskin, would you like to go with your 1-minute wrap-up, please?
Sure. Oh, I just wanted to make one other quick point. I know Mr. Viola brought up the garage. Please note that there is no valuation for a garage involved in this assessment. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Viola, you have actually 2 minutes to wrap up in these 2 cases.
Very good. All right, would like to just mention a couple of things here. Number one, Laurie has talked about our 3rd floor space is sold for $468. What she doesn't take into account is that there was a concession on that sale. So our ultimate gross, on a gross basis, we sold it for $400 a foot. And that was in August. The other thing we should do here is distinguish between retail and office. Even on our retail spaces, as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing rents as high now as $100 a foot. But our rents in the office spaces are not anywhere near that. They're not even half of that. The other thing I will point out is that in our sales, people are buying what I would refer to as a cool, dark shell. So when they purchase from us, they are in the $400 to $450 range, and then they do their own improvements. So we're not paying for that. There's no allowance involved. So there really is if you're using a turnkey valuation versus a cool dark shell, or in the case of Fed Bar upstairs on the 4th floor, that 10,000 square feet was gutted by the 2 purchasers. And then they spent somewhere in the vicinity of $200 a foot. So they bought it for under $400, but then they're probably in there now with a value of over $700 a foot. But that was their making. That's not what we didn't benefit from that. And I believe I showed Laurie on that sale in August, the net of concession, we were at $400 a foot. The other one on this floor, that's Laurie is aware, sold and settled in January of this year, was at $425 a foot. And here again, it's a cool dark shell. The space got totally gutted. I'll rest.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Viola.
Well,
okay, that's among the board now. Where do we go from here? Mr. Yates?
I made a note that the appellant did say a year from now, this is all changing. It'll, what he's proposing is with this year only. I don't know how that changes or makes anyone's thoughts change a little. I do understand where Lori came from with applying the rules they now sit for this property, but it's this year only. Next year, they don't have a problem. They're trapped into finishing this lease out this year.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the numbers are there to support like the previous cases that we've seen today, I know they had difficulty with the tenant and, landlords have bad tenants and it's difficult to assess just or make a consideration just on not leaving but based on the numbers that are shown here on the operating from the 2024 and
I agree. The
Yes.
rules changed, and if you applied the original rules for the one more year, that would not be the case.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
don't
only
know.
thing.
I agree with Jose. I think the numbers are there, and I think the change from the economic unit also has had some impact on, where the numbers came out to be. So I think it's an unusual case, but I think Ms. Ruskin did a
I think
fairly decent job at doing this, coming up with a value.
The only thing I would possibly consider is maintaining last year's one more year. That's the only thing I'm suggesting. I do think what Lori did was correct, and that's based on the new rules, and I understand that. But they're not really, the label changed, but the tenant and rent did not. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I just wish that the numbers were broken down a little bit better in column G1 and G2 to, because the rent is under market. I wish it was just kind of broken down a little better. But like you guys said, I mean, based on the numbers here, based on what was reported and just, keeping everything equalized, it seems like the county, didn't make any error in that sense.
So I agree they did.
I mean, it's not like this value is something that this property hasn't seen because it's been assessed much higher before.
Right.
And
Right.
so, yeah, I can't really see where to make an adjustment based just on that. I'm okay with the county.
Yeah, that's the only argument I can see. But I'm fine.
All right, then I'm gonna make a motion on the first case, 296, to accept the county's assessment of $7,425,900.
Okay, we have a motion to confirm the first case, $7,425,900. We have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Mendez, all in favor? Aye. So it is 4-0. It has been confirmed.
Okay, and then the second case, BOE number 300, I'll move to confirm that at $1,712,600.
We have a motion to confirm on RPC 332. We have a second from Mr. Mendez. All right, all in favor? Again, it's 4-0. The assessments are being confirmed. Thank you, Mr. Viola. Thank you, Ms. Ruskin.
Thanks for your time.
All right, anything else to go through on this meeting? Nope, not having anything else, we're going to go ahead and adjourn, and it is 10:14, and we are going to be meeting next to virtually. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.